And so, some additional content for this game is about to begin. Specifically, not only just trying to tackle for some more missions, but in addition to that, we're about to collect the last batch of treasure chests before we take on the final level in the game. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Blaze the Cat here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game for the Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, not PC, and not Game Boy Advance version either. So, let's want to classify that right now. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to almost completely done every single aspect in terms of that particular level. Welcome to playing topless minions. In addition to that, we somehow, so far, only tackled for one of those missions, which appears to be in the final driving level. And oh no, that level is pretty difficult because, relatively speaking now, because again, if the road has been completely blocked, well, obviously though, we have to retry the entire stage all over again. Which, thankfully though, it only took me for about 4 attempts on that particular stage, normally, for the first mission that we did somehow tackle through. But of course, as to be expected, we will be back for that particular level until whenever we decided able to actually focus on the post-game content right now. So speaking of which though, as you can tell, today for this video, alongside with the bonus in the next video, if possibly for next week, we're about to go back onto the previous stages again, presumably for the final time, to able to actually try to complete some more missions, and in addition to that, we also do need to collect some more treasure chests, so that way we can able to actually decide able to aim for, you know, the true 100% completion after all. So generally speaking now is about the fact that I'm pretty sure we're now onto the 3rd quarter done for this entire game so far, at least to be more specifically for this entire 100% completion after all. So anyways though, oh yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 22nd of November today, in some cases in 2024 today, so it may look like about the fact that we've only got about 8 more days left now until specifically that we're about to be approaching on to the 12th and the final month in terms of 2024, and as of course December. So, and generally speaking now is about the fact that I'm pretty concerned about the fact that we've only got about, I would say, 4 weeks left until the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie is going to be on its way on a big screen. So I'm still very excited for that film, obviously, because after all though, it's been about quite a few months ago since we've last hear about the films of some other stuff relates to the films of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie. So chances are though is about the fact that hopefully we shall see some more surprises here and there. But let's not get ahead of ourselves at this point right now, just because no matter what though is about the fact that, like I stated before, we've only got about, let's just say, 4 weeks left, or in some cases 28 days left, until that particular film finally comes out on a big screen. So anyways, so there's that particular bonus pad that we somehow accidentally ignored this whole entire time, because I will admit it though right away, during my first run through in this stage in particular, that I cannot see that particular bonus panel right there. So I think this is going to be the final time we can able to actually deal with a lot of combat here and there, and so much so for the fact that there's going to be a lot of tough enemies that we do need to deal with, whilst thankfully though there are some tons of crappy patties here and there, just in case if we do get hit at one point, then obviously though is about the fact that we can able to obtain a Krabby Patty if we somehow restore our health. So as a result though, it managed able to check out there. So anyway, also another thing else that's worth noting for is about the fact that, did you guys know, it's been exactly 12 years ago since the Wii U did somehow first came out in North America. Despite the fact that while looking back on it though, and relatively speaking now, I already know for the fact that the entire system was flopped, especially concerning for the fact that not only for its lack of third-party support, but on top of all that stuff though, I will admit it though right away, some games are pretty good and awesome, but there are some of them are pretty disappointing and okay-ish kind of games. Like for instance though is about the fact I still can't even believe that the Wii U only had one new Mario Party game at the time, which appears to be of course Mario Party 10, not counting the forms of the virtual console re-release versions of Mario Party 2, Mario Party Advance, and Mario Party DS, of all things. So, relatively speaking though, and also if you don't want to count the phones the backwards compatibility with Mario Party 8 and Mario Party 9 both on the Wii. So just to ensure for the fact that relatively speaking though, I'm only going to be explaining about specifically the Wii U stuff, of course. So anyway, also another thing else is worth noting for actually is about the fact that by that time until at the very beginning of December potentially, we might able to actually celebrate one of those Kingdom Hearts compilation games, which appears to be for its 10th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts HD 2.5 remakes for the English version most likely, but I suppose we'll let some toy sales will able to explain more about it, or perhaps even maybe, just maybe, that Silver, alongside with the forms of some toys else for that matter, maybe they'll try to save that particular topic and during around that time period. So, specifically though, on the 5th of December in the UK version, and I don't know about the North American version though, mainly because as far as I'm aware, it's been quite a lot of days since we've last played something relates to Kingdom Hearts, ever since we did somehow manage able to replay Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix on the PlayStation 4, just because of, you know, faster loading times, and not to mention those about the fact that we're smooth 60 frames per second. So, but that's the way how I feel about it, in regards to the forms of, you know, every nowadays, I prefer playing any other Kingdom Hearts games with 60 frames per second, apart from few exceptions, which is of course HD cinematic movies within 358 over 2 days and recoded and key back cover. So yeah, you get the idea for this point. So, but anyway though, also, another thing else is worth noting for actually, I did indeed manage able to get back into playing through Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled recently, and so far I'm almost pretty much unlocked every single playable characters up to this point, specifically the Switch version, because as you know, we no longer have the PlayStation 4 version right now, mainly because trying to get the remaining trophies locked out behind online functionality might be felt a bit cumbersome for me, and generally speaking I was about the fact I'm just only going to be stick around with only one version this time around, which is of course Nitro Fueled Crash Team Racing for the Nintendo Switch, of course, because I can able to play the game on the go, although the PC Steam version also counts on Steam Deck, but I'd much rather play specific games on handheld mode for the Nintendo Switch, not only because it's lighter, but as well as from that though, it's about the fact that if we managed able to play the game on tabletop mode for multiplayer stuff, and don't get me wrong, I found Steam Deck to be quite interesting, but it's just about the fact that it feels a little bit more heavyweight, and on top of all that stuff though, the actual controller factor might be felt a bit weird at times. Well, that's just me, and on top of all that stuff though, I still haven't exactly got myself Steam Deck just yet. Maybe I was planning to, but right now, no, because as far as I'm aware, it's getting quite pricey at this point, depending on how many gigabytes you're about to be going after, so that's besides the point. So, anyways though, there's also another thing else is worth noting for actually, is that you probably already know, ever since back in last year in 2023, that I believe that Maxi did somehow tackle through Piglet's big game, specifically the PlayStation 2 version by the way, and no matter what though, I've seen a lot of comments about the fact that on the North American version most likely, for Piglet's big game, on the PlayStation 2 version, my god, the pricing is so ridiculously high at this point. Like, I'm usually only talking about the forms of the American version, not the UK version, because I'm aware that the UK version is still quite cheap even to this day, while depending on what condition types they're in. But compared to North American version on the other hand, my god, it was like $200 or even $240, or in some cases, the worst of all, the worst offender about this is on the GameCube version, at least on the North American version, it cost about $300 within used condition. I mean, this is ridiculous, especially considering for the fact that I totally get it because it's a retro game, so don't expect things about the fact that the actual price tags are gonna get much more skyrocketed, especially if you're trying to go after the very good condition for certain retro games, like for instance the majority of the GameCube stuff, and even some movie tie-in games on specific systems for that matter. I mean, luckily I still managed to get the game with me, especially because no matter what though, I've heard that Piglet's big game is actually quite fun to me, not only for the fact that we can able to actually do a lot of quick time events for a certain battle sequence for the bunch of Heffalumps and Woolsels, but it's also about the fact that I still really enjoy the world themes that you somehow go into. Like, it does have some bit of variety on them, unlike the forms of how it does it in Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure, which I already know for a fact that it's kind of unfortunate we no longer have that game anymore, because for whatever reason is about the fact that Shadow did somehow accidentally use the Chaos Spear right at the forms of the game's disc, and unfortunately though, the game stops working. So because of that though, yeah, there goes our 20... No, I should say it only cost about like £5 for the PlayStation 2 version, because we already know for a fact that we also tackle for that game on the PlayStation 2 version, alongside with the forms of the Game Boy Advance versions of not only Piglet's Big Game, but alongside with the forms of Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure as well. Generally speaking, for the sake of the forms of trying to able to compare two of those versions in particular for two of those games. So, although it plays kind of similar within both of those versions in particular, but ultimately though it's about the fact that at the end of the day, Piglet's Big Game is more superior in my opinion. I mean, sure, it is a bit too simple, but it's just about the fact that, for what I can tell, Sonic does have a lot of super nostalgia for it, especially concerning for the fact it's actually a pretty good adaptation to the movie for Piglet's Big Movie back in 2003. So, no matter what though, I can totally see that when it comes to bias kind of syndrome, I guess. So, anyways though, and I did not meant able to go back into this particular battle arena right here, because I, unfortunately though, somehow ignored one of those treasure chests I do need to get. So no matter what though, we need to walk back on foot for some areas or specific spots of the entire level. So sometimes I will admit though right away, it can be quite tedious at times. Well, that's nothing even compared to the forms of one of those treasure chests that we must able to try to get at some point whenever we get on to the forms of bubble blowing baby hunt level. So yeah, we can able to come across into the forms of a lot of tedium involved with all that backtracking and all that stuff though. I mean, generally speaking though, luckily though, we can able to actually tackle for the final boss at any time now. But that's just the thing though, I'm most able to actually go for a true 100% completion playthrough, just in case no matter what though. I've noticed that a lot of players have already done so already in the past, so generally speaking though, that might be besides the point. So anyways, let's go ahead and do some more wall jumps here and there, or specifically triangle jumps, similar to the forms of how it does in Sonic Heroes. So, because kind of thinking about it, Sonic Heroes, specifically the English version on North America, and the European version that came out the exact same year as in this game did somehow came out. So, anyways, let's use the Sonic Wave, and oh, son of a biscuit! I did not expect that particular unexpected projectile right there to somehow hit us. So, but luckily though, we did somehow manage to deal with this enemy right here. And so much so, after you deal with that particular enemy, and what is up with the false camera angle? Oh, jeez, I hate when that happens, especially concerning for the fact that I'm almost assuming about the fact that it's trying to go onto the back perspective, but no, it just goes all over the place sometimes. So, well, let's just see if we can able to get this chest for the second time, and there we go. Now we somehow got that particular treasure chest right now. So, either way, and so much so, I believe we are done every single aspect in terms of the forms of now that we are men. So, yeah, that pretty much takes care of it from here. And now let's go ahead and go back onto the forms of this level right here to tackle through not only the time challenge, but hopefully the ring challenge, and potentially though, the micro time challenge. So I wonder how that's going to turn out.
Wanna slide down there again?
We already made it out. Why would we want to do that?
I'll reward you.
Then duty calls.
Excellent. Slide through there faster than the allotted time, and I'll reward you.
Well, thankfully though, unlike the forms of how it does on the main mission, that basically though we need to keep on activating these vases, in addition to some lamps needs to be dropped. Well, thankfully though, on the ring challenge, alongside with the forms of the time challenge and the micro time challenge, we don't have to deal with the forms of the actual vases anymore. So relatively speaking though, all we have to do is pretty simple. We get able to figure out the correct pathway until you're able to actually accomplish the entire mission. So, at least thankfully thankfully though, we also don't have to worry about trying to able to actually grab those treasure chests because, well, straight to the point, we've already got every single treasure chest on this entire stage, oh and all, so everything else will be a total piece of cake, at least for now anyway. Like, you know, once we get into the later missions to come, well, you get the idea of what's to come. So, anyways, though, and also straight to the point is about the fact that I believe we are basically almost done every single slide levels, not just by the forms of certain mission challenges, but in addition to the forms of obtaining every single treasure chests as well. So, hopefully, though, everything else will be checked out there. So anyway, so this is where the part about the fact that we have to avoid those TNT barrels as much as we could, and so much so for the fact that we can able to try to make our way to these lamps here, so that way we can able to make our way to the final stretch of this entire stage. So at least still, thankfully though, the checkpoints will be active if you manage to go on these time challenges, unlike the ring challenges though, that checkpoints does not help you at all, because you have to restart the entire challenge all over again if you do mess up. So but anyways though, so at the very least we did this mission no problem. Whilst unlike the forms of how it does it on later challenges coming up, it will become a lot more difficult, you know. So either way, so there goes the time challenge in this particular Shell City level.
Wow, faster than expected. Here's your reward.
And I believe we're now on to the halfway point of this entire stage already, so this means we can now move on to the ring challenge. So let's see if we can able to do not mess this up this time.
Are you up for another challenge?
I think we've jumped through enough hoops for you, Mindy. Aye.
Then how about jumping through rings instead?
All right.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting about the fact that I was assuming that Mindy was gonna say something, but apparently though, sometimes about the fact that there are some technical issues, I will admit it though right away, on my PlayStation 2 version most likely, that sometimes the voice boxes doesn't seem able to come out a bit. So yeah, I do apologize for that particular weird, unexpected technical difficulties with the actual dialogue is gonna be involved. So anyways though, let's go and try to tackle for the ring challenge of course, and this is where the part we're gonna be able to try to go through a multitude of wire-to-wire kind of platforming here and there. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, thankfully though, we don't have to necessarily try to worry about specific routes to take, although there are a couple of times though about the fact that sometimes the rings will trick you at one point if you think you're about to be going to the normal pathway. I mean, don't even get me started in Journey Forms of in the later mission coming up, in Journey Forms of in Shell City Dead Ahead, which as a result though, oh jeez, that was a definition of the close call right there, and we're just able to ignore these electricity no matter what. Oh, jeez, there was a... I did not make it to the leaps of faith. Okay, I'm also able to go for a different level instead. Let's go into Sunday driving, because no matter what though, it's been quite some time since we actually been into the forms of Sunday driving, since after doing with Menace for the first time around. And luckily though, unlike the first mission though, thankfully though, we don't have to able to go after Goofy Goober this time around.
Looking for another challenge, eh?
That's right. Real men like a challenge.
And cookies.
I'll give you a limited amount of time to get around the track 3 times. Beat the time, and I'll reward you.
So similar to the forms of the second driving level, as to be expected, we have to go through different laps. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory kind of stuff, although thankfully though, we can now have the ability to able to actually try to go after, well, the only 3 treasure chests that we can simply try to find in this entire stage. So, and I believe something tells me about the fact, I believe one of them is actually at the very end of one of the tracks, and as far as the other 2 goes, well, we have to take the alternative paths that we need to take, like not to mention though that this entire track will able to actually bring multiple shortcuts that we can able to actually highly recommend you take, especially if we decided able to actually tackle through the micro time challenge eventually. So, for instance though, I believe there was actually a shortcut right towards this wall right here, so I'm also assuming about the fact that that's almost going to be like an obstacle. Well, chances are though, it is accessible if you try to able to actually go through alternative paths, unlike the forms of how it does it in the first mission, that, you know, we can't do kind of stuff. Well, we can't do such a thing like this, which I will admit it though right away, I do apologize if my commentary is a little bit iffy sometimes. I mean, relatively speaking now, that's as far as I can try to explain about the forms of today's topic at this point. Well, aside from the fact that, as you probably already know, as I stated this before, I basically almost completely done when it comes to unlocking every single playable characters in Crash Team Racing Nitro Field. And all in all though, I was very pleased for myself after the events of not only trying to get ourselves the entire DLC content for Sonic X Shadow Generations for the Digital Deluxe upgrade, but in addition to that though, I also fully appreciate about the fact that, well, if I was assuming originally though, I was originally trying to able to go after one of those digital games for the Switch, but chances are though, I usually paid the remaining money for the sake of the forms of trying to get some more Wumpa coins for the sake of trying to unlock the remaining characters for Crash Team Racing Nitro Field. So just in case I can able to fully complete the entire character roster, apart from one or two, because two of those characters do need to require specific conditions, like for instance, in order to able to unlock M-True-P, I have to beat every single staff ghost data, in order to able to actually unlock that particular character, which I will admit it though, it is very tricky to me though, because I can never for the life of me try to beat that particular challenge. I will admit it though right away. In addition to that though, there's also the checkpoint crate box, or the iron checkpoint crate, that you do need able to try to find every single Beanox crate around every single track in the game, and as a result though, it can be pretty well hidden, so I need to figure out the guide of how to able to try to find the last bunch of remaining Beanox crates I do need to get at some point. So either way though, chances are though, it might take a bit while to able to try to get to this point, so hopefully I'm also able to get around onto that, until I've realized about the fact that, well, at this point in time, trying to grind as many of those Wumpa coins might be felt a bit tedious at points. So, but hopefully though, by that time until next year anyway, I could easily guarantee to able to actually fully complete it, the entire character roster unlocking requirements during at some point until next year, if possible. So, I mean, time will tell though, time will tell, but either way. And also another thing as well is about the fact that, unfortunately though, I don't think there's a guarantee for us to able to actually get ourselves the forms of the next cosmetic character for Rosalina, sadly, because I was assuming if I was trying to get myself the cat Rosalina as a driver, but unfortunately though, I did manage to double check in during the forms of Mario Wikipedia, for able to actually double check the lists of tours, and it may look like, unfortunately though, she was not listed for the actual daily purchases. So because of that though, yeah, there goes our luck, especially considering for the fact, I suppose, the only option we do have is by simply trying to get some more Mii racing suits until we're able to increase our points value for the majority of those Mii racing suits after all. So, kind of underwhelming personally though. Well, regardless of such though, it knows what it is, I guess. So anyways though, as far as I'm aware, that you probably already know that I'm actually going to be ignoring the water slide segment, at least until the next challenge, because as far as I'm aware, when it comes to time challenges like this, it will be extremely difficult to handle the actual steering while going to the forms of the water current. So, thankfully, I did somehow ignore that particular route. That way, we complete the mission as usual.
You did it! Here's your reward.
And there we go. So that pretty much does it for the time challenge right here. And now we're about to be moving on to the ring challenge. So it will be pretty tricky though.
Would you like another challenge?
We'd love to take your challenge.
And Goofy Goober tokens.
As you drive around the track, rings will appear along the way. You have a limited time to drive through each ring. Drive through every ring, and I'll give you a reward.
And thankfully though, we actually got every single treasure chest at the process of the Forms of the Time challenge right now. So this means we can able to actually try to once again drive through rings. So, and the fact that also we are basically also almost pretty much done every single driving stages in regards to the forms of mission objectives either way, because after we're done with the forms of Sunday driving, I suppose no matter what though, we've only got one driving level left, which so much so to the point where the fact that, as I stated before, the final stretch of the entire game when it comes to fully 100%ing everything in the game will become a bit of a challenge. So but I digress. So, there's also another thing else that's worth mentioning for, actually, is about the fact, I suppose that Knuckles has already mentioned about this ever since that about the fact that, after all, that yesterday he obviously already finished up every single aspect in terms of Sonic & Knuckles standalone version ever since in yesterday. Like, for instance, though, he did wrap things up everything in Knuckles' story now, so this means about the fact that we are about to be moving on to the next Sonic Let's Play, which, according to Knuckles, we originally decided able to tackle through Sonic Generations for the 3DS as a redo Let's Play, but for the time being though, there is that one specific original version of the game we actually got left in terms of the classic Sonic games or anything else like that. That's what appears to be Sonic the Hedgehog CD for the Mega CD or Sega CD version specifically, because obviously though we would like to compare the forms of the remastered version of the game either in 2011 or nowadays with Sonic Origins compilation game, but it's also worth noting for us about the fact that we would love to see the comparison with the forms of the opening cinematic screen. So because of that though, because you know, as far as what Knuckles did somehow said before, we would love to able to actually tackle through multitude of versions of certain familiar Sonic games. Well, not all of them, mind you, because, well, let's just say, straight to the point, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually tackle for the PlayStation 2 version of Sonic Heroes, in addition to the Xbox version as well, just because, well, after all, we've already done on the GameCube version, and same plus with the forms of Shadow the Hedgehog as well, but I'm referring to as the forms of doing certain different versions of certain Sonic games that does have some differences, depending on what specific systems you play on. So, well, either way though, I suppose that makes a little bit more up for it. Well, either way though, that's as far as I can usually say for this point right here. So, anyways, let's go and try to dodge these ice cream scoops right here. So just in case we don't want to lose too much health, because otherwise though, again, if we do screw up at one point, then we have to restart this entire process all over again. So anyway, also, apart from the fact that as far as what Knuckles has already stated this ever since in yesterday though, you probably already realized about the fact that one of those Nintendo Switch games, physically wise, is going to be making on its way during at some point until next year for 2025, and that game is going to be Little Kitty Big City, which as far as I'm aware, is about to due out exactly at 2025 year, but to be more specific than that, it's currently going to be listed as in the March 28th release on 2025, which is roughly about 8 days after Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was about to be on its way as well. I mean, aside from the fact that, well, obviously though, I'm still excited for the forms of not only Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but alongside with the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, so that way, once that particular version of the game finally comes out, then obviously though, we will love to able to actually show you guys the Cloud World, which is originated from the 3DS version. So either way though, it's a good thing we decided able to not tackle for the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Country Returns after all. Well, at least for now, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though, the entire recording setup for the 3DS games as of now is going to be a bit of a painful process to deal with. I mean, aside from the fact that we also have to worry about the forms of some hand cramps sometimes, even especially noticeable concerning for the fact that it's bad enough that we still no longer have ourselves the actual tripod for the sake of the forms of the iPhone, and on top of all that stuff though, we cannot afford the 3DS capture device. So, because as far as I'm aware, not only is it incredibly hard to get, but on top of that, it's really expensive as of now. Especially about the fact that now we actually got capture card devices for not only for the regular 3DS, but alongside with the forms of the 3DS XL and Nintendo 2DS, and even nowadays with new Nintendo 3DS and a new 3DS XL, and it's especially noticeable with the latest edition, which is of course new Nintendo 2DS XL. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to think about this. So, and I believe something tells me though, yes, I do need to make my way to the forms of that particular rapid slide. So just to ensure for the fact that we'll go through the next bunch of rings here, and in fact that no matter what though, thankfully though, this part right here is pretty self-explanatory. Thankfully though, you don't necessarily fall out of the actual specific boundaries. So either way, unlike this very schizophrenic handling thing to deal with when it comes to chasing after Goofy Goober itself. So either way though, And so much so, we've somehow accomplished the ring race in the forms of Sunday driving, so not too shabby.
You did it! Here's your reward.
Alright, so I think what essentially what I'm going to be doing right now is that we're about to be tackling through the final mission in this entire level before we move on to the next batch of missions.
This is a manly challenge. The manly time challenge.
Well, we're not little kids. We can do it.
Yeah, we're men.
Okay, do 3 laps of the track, and I'll give you a hard time to beat.
And as far as I'm aware, the best recommendation for this particular mission objective in Sunday driving is, of course, what to expect. Always recommend you go after the shortcuts, not the forms of specific crazy routes to take, but to be more specific than that, is that if we go into the forms of the cafe section of this entire racetrack, obviously though we have to take down one of those specific breakable walls, and also not to mention though, you probably best able to actually ignore the actual rapid slide section, because otherwise though you'll be bouncing around all over the place, and straight to the point, you will slow down exponentially. So as a result though, that's 2 recommendations I can probably give you guys about the forms of this particular micro time challenge in this level. So either way though. Oh, and there's also another thing else that's worth mentioning for, speaking of which though, in regards to the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie, I'm pretty sure the actual final runtime has just been revealed or something, which as far as I'm aware, the runtime for the film is going to be 1 hour and 49 minutes, so relatively speaking though, it probably is the second longest. Oh no, kind of think about it, it was actually, it's like, in a between the forms of, well, let's just say the first Sonic movie was the shortest of the 3, and meanwhile for Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was still the longest of the 3, so it feels like it's like in a middle length in regards to the forms of the runtime of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So as a result though, no matter what though, I still have no idea of what the actual runtime is going to be for other films in particular. For instance though, with Mufasa the Lion King, despite the fact I don't usually care for that just yet, until if there are certain considerations for the sake of the forms of the review scores alike, which, again, we'll find out more about it at some point until next month. So, anyway, although, not to mention, though, is about the fact that we're still not going to talk about any spoilers for the time being, so I digress. Speaking of which, though, is about the fact that me and Silver and Shadow, alongside with Sonic, of course, that we somehow did manage to watch a bunch of episodes of Dragon Ball Super recently. And my goodness, the grand finale of this entire Dragon Ball Super series, my goodness, the grand finale is really epic in every way imaginable. Well, I'm probably not going to mention about the forms of what the actual plot involves around, unless if you guys managed able to play through Dragon Ball Sparking Zero recently, not only for the PlayStation 5, alongside with Xbox Series X/S, even especially noticeable with PC versions as well. So yeah, I'll let you guys judge about the forms of the actual specific thoughts about the forms of the you know, the last bunch of episodes that's already been shown in Journey forms of. I won't classify for noticing this is about the fact that the program we did somehow watch it on, it was surprisingly enough on BBC iPlayer, strangely enough, on the UK version, despite the fact that Silver and Shadow did manage able to point out that certain scenes has been cut out, probably because, as far as I'm aware, I can imagine if we somehow got the actual compilation DVDs of any other series for that matter, it will actually contain not only gore bits, but alongside with the forms of certain violence, and on top of that, some stronger language, which I totally get it because of how the fact that, well, usually for what I can tell, that I believe in North America, if I could recall correctly, that Dragon Ball Super was also being aired on Nickelodeon during that time, which also did manage to cut out certain strong language, and in addition to certain violence, and pretty much anything else, potentially speaking. So, yeah, that's as far as I can try to say about this, I guess. But I will say, after seeing the true final episode in Dragon Ball Super, I will still say I can easily recommend watching Dragon Ball Super. It is seriously, it's without doubt the coolest animated series of all time, next to Dragon Ball Z.
That was great driving, SpongeBob.
And there we go, so I believe that pretty much does it for every single aspect in terms of Sunday driving. So now we can move on to the other levels we need to revisit.
This This is the final challenge on this track. You can try to beat your own time.
We are the fastest sandwich on the road.
Well, on second thought though, SpongeBob, we'll give this challenge a pass because it's optional, and not to mention though, as I explained about this before, there's no rewards after realizing for beating your own time, unless if there's some bragging rights, I guess. So, I suppose, no matter what though, we should probably hit back into... Yeah, no matter what though, let's go back into the forms of 3,000 miles to Shell City, because as far as I'm aware, I believe we are still missing some treasure chests, so relatively speaking we'll hit in there next, so that way we can able to actually wrap things up every single topics, for the sake of the forms of this stage, before we're able to actually continue things on for the majority of the driving levels, and especially noticeable with some other remaining missions here and there. So, before we end off the video right here, we need to get rid of this thing first, so just to ensure we don't get interrupted by respawning enemies and stuff like that, so that'll be the best option to do this. So with that being said, folks, is that we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie video game for the Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. We're about to be going back into other levels to grab not only more Goofy Goober tokens, but alongside with some more treasure chests here and there. So I'll see you guys until on next Wednesday.